Did you know that Dana Plato, famous to millions for her sweet, wide-eyed portrayal of Kimberly Drummond on Diff'rent Strokes, once yearned to quit acting altogether and train as a nurse, hoping to escape the relentless spotlight she found so unsettling? Many fans never realized just how deeply she struggled with the pressures of childhood stardom. At the height of her fame, she confided to a close friend that sometimes all she wanted was an ordinary life, far from auditions, contract negotiations, and tabloid gossip. For Dana, that longing emerged from a lifetime spent in front of cameras since infancy. And while many remember her cheerful smile and carefree demeanor on TV, behind the scenes she wrestled with profound anxieties and heartbreak. Dana Plato was born on November 7th, 1964, in Maywood, California. Even her earliest days on this earth were marked by complications. Her birth mother struggled financially and gave her up for adoption. At just a few days old, she was adopted by Dean and Florine K. Plato, who brought her to live in the San Fernando Valley, the bustling suburban area that had become synonymous with Hollywood aspirations. Kay noticed her baby daughter's photogenic features early on and soon began taking her to commercial auditions. Legend has it that baby Dana appeared in commercials before she was even old enough to form complete sentences, with casting agents taken by her wide blue eyes and cherubic expressions. While Dana's adoptive mother believed she was championing her daughter's budding star potential, Dana would later describe those years as a constant whirl of auditions, rejections, and occasional breakthroughs that left little room for a normal childhood. That environment, heavily focused on landing roles, shaped Dana's sense of self. When other children spent their weekends playing in neighborhood yards, Dana often spent hers standing in lines, at casting calls, anxiously hoping for that next break. Though Dean Plato tried to offer a semblance of normalcy by encouraging backyard barbecues and family game nights, Kay was determined to see her daughter become the next big child star. Dana's father, older and more traditional, tried to strike a balance. But family finances were unsteady, so any success Dana found was doubly important. There was more than mere ambition at stake. It felt like the family's stability and status might rest on her young shoulders. By the mid-1970s, America was tuned in to kid-centric TV shows that tackled social issues with a light comedic touch. Producers searched for fresh faces who could deliver lines with sincerity and innocence. Dana, with her wholesome look and calm, gentle presence, started landing minor parts on television. Her big break arrived in 1978 when she was cast as Kimberly Drummond on Diff'rent Strokes, an NBC sitcom about a wealthy white widower who adopts two African-American boys from Harlem. The premise was quite bold for mainstream TV at the time, addressing racial issues through a family-friendly lens. Dana's role as the big sister to Todd Bridges and Gary Coleman's characters gave the show a dimension of cross-cultural sibling bonding. She was introduced as the sweet, well-meaning teenager who instantly adored her new brothers, forging comedic and heartfelt storylines. The show was a runaway success, catapulting Dana, Todd, and Gary to a level of fame few could have predicted. Overnight, the 14-year-old Dana found herself recognized everywhere. Grocery stores, mall parking lots, even at her local skating rink. She would sign autographs and pose for pictures, often with fans praising how refreshing it was to see a supportive sister figure on TV. While her on-screen persona radiated cheer, behind the scenes, she felt something entirely different, an avalanche of pressure. She worried about memorizing lines while her castmates, especially the quick-witted Gary Coleman, dazzled with comedic timing. She felt overshadowed sometimes, unsure if she measured up in a cast filled with big personalities. The producers were friendly, but like all major shows, they demanded consistent performance. There was little tolerance for personal struggles or dips in energy. Meanwhile, Plato pressed her daughter to keep smiling, keep auditioning for side projects, and remain grateful for every photo op. Even so, Dana quietly confided in a close friend, "I'm not sure this is really me, but I don't know what else to do." One rarely discussed episode from this period underscores the hidden strain. During Season 3 of Diff'rent Strokes, Dana arrived on set clearly upset about a family argument from the night before. She had flubbed a line at home while rehearsing, and Kay scolded her harshly, insisting Dana's focus was slipping. On the show's soundstage the next morning, Dana was subdued, tears brimming at times. A sympathetic crew member tried to comfort her, encouraging her to see a child therapist if she felt overwhelmed. Dana appreciated the sentiment, but explained she feared that any sign of weakness might cost her the role. She'd heard stories of other young actors replaced for being difficult, so she plastered on a smile and delivered her lines, forging ahead like a miniature professional. That anecdote reveals how fragile Dana's situation was. She was a child navigating adult expectations, with almost no margin for error. As Diff'rent Strokes rose in popularity, Dana found that the normal teenage experiences, proms, slumber parties, dating, either happened under public scrutiny or not at all. She tried for a time to attend a regular school, but classmates either fawned over her star status or teased her for being the perfect TV princess, fueling her sense of isolation. She eventually switched to on-set tutoring. At the same time, her mother's expectations only intensified. Kay advocated for brand endorsements, personal appearances, and even album deals, none of which particularly interested Dana. She wanted to do well on the show, but also dreamt of stepping away from that swirling spotlight, maybe focusing on her beloved hobbies, like figure skating. Indeed, figure skating was one of Dana's passions. She was reportedly quite talented, training rigorously in the early mornings. It became a cherished escape, a place where her performance was purely for herself, not the cameras. In 1984, at the age of 19, Dana's life took a sudden turn. She became pregnant, a fact that didn't align well with the squeaky clean image of Kimberly Drummond or the show's family-friendly brand. The pregnancy was written off the series, effectively ending her role. This abrupt exit blindsided her and fans alike. Dana believed the producers might have made accommodations, but she realized just how precarious her position was. Soon after, her personal life grew complicated. She married the child's father, rock guitarist Lanny Lambert, welcoming a son named Tyler, but the marriage proved turbulent. Within a few years, it unraveled amid financial strain and personal disagreements. The friction with the show's producers had shaken Dana's confidence. Now separated from the sitcom that had defined her adolescence and facing a rocky domestic life, she found herself drifting in search of stability. In the late 1980s, America's TV landscape shifted yet again, with edgier sitcoms and family dramas crowding the schedule. For Dana, roles dried up. Casting directors often saw her only as Kimberly Drummond, a character who belonged to a comedic era that was losing steam. She attempted comedic cameo appearances, but none captured the old magic. Eager to find her footing, she ventured into more adult-oriented projects, sometimes landing in B-movies or minor TV specials. Meanwhile, her relationship with Kay frayed, partially over how money was managed. Dana often said she felt drained, emotionally, financially, and spiritually. She wrestled with a mounting sense of failure. Once the star of a primetime hit, she was now a single mother struggling to find fulfilling work. One of Dana's attempts to reinvent herself involved posing for a semi-nude photo shoot in Playboy in 1989. She hoped it might spark fresh interest in her image, showcasing a more mature, confident side. The public reaction, however, was mixed. Some fans of Diff'rent Strokes were shocked, and the industry took this as a sign that Dana was perhaps drifting aimlessly. She also tried stage acting, hoping the live theater environment would help her reconnect with raw performance, but the financial rewards were meager, and she still felt overshadowed by her teenage stardom. Her personal struggles intensified. She faced legal disputes over custody and child support, which weighed heavily on her fragile self-esteem. Unbeknownst to most, Dana also battled substance abuse during this period. Like many child stars, she had easy access to prescription medications, and when life's pressures felt unbearable, those pills offered an illusory escape. She found herself drifting between small apartments, sometimes reliant on friends' couches. Those who knew her well say she was deeply kind, always quick to share what little she had, but heartbreakingly lost. By the early 1990s, tabloids occasionally splashed her name across headlines after minor legal altercations, shoplifting and such. Stories that pained her former Diff'rent Strokes castmates. Todd Bridges and Gary Coleman, ironically, were also grappling with their own personal demons, prompting many to wonder if there was a child star curse at play. The most rarely discussed but deeply revealing moment of that era occurred when Dana briefly attempted to open a small business with a friend, an idea to sell handcrafted children's clothing. She believed it could be a new start away from showbiz. Her excitement was genuine, but the business flopped within months due to lack of capital and marketing. That disappointment seemed to break something inside her. In a tearful phone call to a confidant, she admitted, "I just can't do anything right outside that show, can I?" It summed up the devastating mindset that she was trapped by her own past fame, unable to forge a new identity. As the mid-1990s approached, Dana's life teetered further out of control. She drifted through short-term romantic partnerships and faced mounting debts. An ill-advised robbery attempt at a Las Vegas video store in 1991 generated lurid headlines, with tabloids painting her as a fallen star turned desperate criminal. She explained to the police that she was broke, out of options, and impulsively made a terrible choice. Though the store clerk recognized her immediately, it still ended in an embarrassing arrest. The press feasted on the spectacle, ignoring the deeper story of a woman slipping through the cracks. Labeled a joke or a cautionary tale, she found herself persona non grata in an industry that once adored her fresh-faced presence. By 1998, Dana was living in a Tulsa, Oklahoma mobile home with her fiancé, Robert Menchaca, desperately trying to piece together a stable life. Friends recall that she spoke often of wanting to see her son Tyler more regularly, but their relationship was strained by distance and her history of instability. She also attempted a few last appearances on talk shows, hoping to address her personal struggles head-on and possibly reignite public sympathy. On one such radio broadcast with shock jock Howard Stern, she tried to project an image of someone on the mend, but listeners heard traces of fragility in her voice. Some even called in to offer support. Dana appreciated the gestures, but after the show ended, she confided that she felt like an exhibit in a human zoo, exploited for ratings, pinned under the label of child star downfall. In her final months, Dana seemed to fluctuate between hopeful bursts of energy, talking about moving to California, maybe auditioning for cameo roles, and heartbreaking hopelessness. She had trouble sleeping, relied on prescription medication to curb her anxiety, and often worried about her precarious finances. Those around her tried to be supportive, but she was adept at hiding the depth of her torment. A longtime friend described seeing her in late April 1999. She was so sweet and wanted to be happy, but you could see this tiredness in her eyes, like she'd been fighting battles for ages and was worn out. Then, on May 8th, 1999, tragedy struck. While visiting relatives in Moore, Oklahoma, Dana took a lethal mix of the prescription drugs Valium and Lortab. The official cause of death was listed as an overdose, originally deemed an accident, but many, including her fiancé, believed she took her own life in a moment of despair. According to his recollection, they'd had an emotional conversation earlier that day in which she expressed feeling worthless and unloved. He found her unconscious, with empty pill bottles nearby. Despite frantic calls for help, paramedics could not revive her. At just 34 years old, Dana Plato's life was over. News of her sudden death shocked the entertainment world. Diff'rent Strokes fans who remembered her as the kind-hearted Kimberly had difficulty reconciling that bright teenager with the tragic end that had befallen her. Tributes poured in, though some noted the harsh reality that many had distanced themselves from her in the preceding years. There was an outpouring of sadness on fan forums. Early internet message boards carried heartfelt condolences and stories of how people grew up watching her, hoping she'd find happiness. But the tabloids also circled back, rehashing her legal troubles and financial woes, painting her final moments in sensational terms. It was an all too predictable outcome for a star who'd yearned for compassion and normalcy, yet often found only critique and exploitation. That's a wrap for today's video. If you enjoyed it, smash that like button, drop us a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss our new content. Thanks for watching.